All right, well, let's get this show on the road. We got a lot of great people here, and today, this is our second to last episode for the year. Next week, I'm going to close it down. We'll pick it back up in January. I hope you'll keep joining us. And we've got a lot of exciting things planned in January. But what I thought would be interesting is to recap 2020. So much has happened in 2020 that it's hard to even remember it all. I mean, you look back and go, oh, yeah, I do remember that, you know? And I also think it's important because in some ways, as we were just discussing, I think that we're going to get some rinse and repeat in 2021 as we sort of try to deal with the fallout of what we've seen, particularly if there's 268 million people. But I would like to do this quick poll, which I think would be fun, and I'll get to the sponsors in a minute. So if everybody would go into the chat and just put a Y or an N as to whether they're willing to be vaccinated. We will not give your name to anyone. I'm just interested in what the percentage is. I wish we could whip up a quick poll, but I didn't think about it. But I'd love to know where everybody is. I'll take whatever you got. If they can mix it with, I don't know, some other stuff, that's good too. Whatever. If I can get it at Walmart, that's good. Walgreens. Or if there's a dude on the street that's selling it. I know Glen would do this.
Out of the trunk of his car?
Out of the trunk of his car, down. Vaccines are us. I'm in. Vaccines. So quick thanks to our sponsors, CUNA Councils, who continues to sponsor us. We're so thankful for them. Had a great year speaking at their virtual events. Mike, I know you did too. Yep. And Glenn, I know you attended some. Kevin, you did as well. It was a good year. I thought they did a really good job. I was really proud of them for hanging together. We'll talk some about that. Obviously, Best Innovation Group, your place for vaccinations and technical. We've been working on a vaccine. We got some money from Warp Speed. We tested it all on Sarver. You can tell he's just fine. So we did it. The FDA approved us. We also tested it on Glen. Look, he doesn't even need glasses anymore. Wow. It cured his vision, but didn't help his COVID. And then obviously the one, the only really close friend of mine, Mike Lawson. Hey, Mike.
How's it going? I'm 268 million in line as well.
Yeah. By the way, that's the same place I'm in line to get a PS5. The same number for me for a PlayStation 5. So turns out that should actually be, you should get a vaccine at the same time you finally get a PlayStation 5.
I think they give you one after the vaccine.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll get a couple. All right.
A couple vaccines.
So Glenn and I always do a couple things at the end of the year. One of the things we do is we talk about what we're thankful for. We had that episode. If you haven't listened to it, I highly recommend it. It was a good episode. We talked a lot about the Fed. We talked about Bitcoin. We talked about a lot of things that happened this year. And the next thing we always do is kind of year in review. And so Glenn, why don't you kind of chat about it a little bit and we'll get into it.
Yeah, I think I'd like to make it an open forum. I've got a list. Well, you and I talked about the fact that we were not going to do the typical podcast on this year because people are pretty much tired of talking about the election and COVID, which are the two big stories. But it's real easy to overlook a whole bunch of other stuff that took place this year that we've just kind of forgotten over time. So I've written one blog post that we've got out there on the big website. I'm going to do a second one because there were enough stories. But going back at the ones that I thought were the most interesting, and one is pretty recent, in fact, it happened election week, was Ant Financial's IPO that wound up not being Ant Financial's IPO.
Yeah.
If people remember. There was Melissa, you are on top of things.
Wow, she's awesome.
Yeah, that was interesting. Why would they pull out?
Well, they didn't pull out. They got pulled out.
Yeah, China did that to them, right?
Oops. Yeah, I mean, it was fascinating to me. I'm sorry, go ahead. Somebody was saying?
No, I was just saying China said no.
Yeah, exactly. And I wonder how much of it was Jack Ma getting a little bit too bold because everything seemed to be pretty much on track. And he made a comment, or at least was quoted as saying about a week earlier before the IPO, that the regulatory, the burden of regulation, including in China, was risking the slowdown of innovation. And it wasn't long after he said that he was summoned in to speak to the authorities. And suddenly they determined that there were some issues with compliance and disclosure. And at first it was just thought that this was a relatively, short-term kind of delay in the IPO. Everything I'm hearing now is that if it happens at all in 2021, it'll be in the second half of the year, Most people aren't even thinking that. And they are now, to some extent, imposing new regulations that, from I've also heard, will dramatically reduce, almost, but some people have said it by as much as half, the value of the company by the time it's done. There's a story in the Wall Street Journal, I think it was Monday this week, and it sounded a little bit like 2008 to me in terms of syndicated lending. Not an exact comparison, but the way they've become the front end for sourcing small dollar short-term loans, and then they've enlisted banks around China, particularly in the smaller towns and rural areas, to actually put them on their balance sheets. And their concern is that those are the ones that have less underwriting.
Yeah, for those on the call that don't know, give everybody a quick background on why Ant Financial is interesting.
Ant Financial is, for lack of a better way of thinking about it, kind of PayPal, Venmo, etc., on steroids, except in the biggest market in the world, and also in a market that's much more digitally advanced than we are. So it is part of the overall Alipay operation, and it basically has turned into not just the way to pay online in China, just among those things, but it's pretty much become everybody's de facto bank account, for lack of a better way of thinking about things.
The way I kind of explain it is, WeChat is the eBay what Ant Financial was to PayPal.
Yeah, I like
they
it.
kind of go together, because WeChat's and I want to talk about that for a minute, but WeChat is the #1 app, period. Everybody, and it's everybody's got it. They tried to start it here, it didn't go well, but and then obviously one thing leads to another. You need to move money around. It was the same problem that PayPal tried to solve for eBay, which was started by eBay.
And they did solve it. They solved it quite well, and then moved on from there.
Yeah. So I also had heard that Mr. Ma had written some dissenting things in social media beyond what he had said about the Chinese government that got him his IPO removed. I don't know if it was his TikTok account, maybe it was some dancing he did, I'm not sure. But it's interesting to look at a certain thing. We talk about this a lot, but when it comes to Asian countries in particular, as it relates to their business strategy, we tend to think in years, maybe, they tend to think in decades and centuries. And watching what's going on now, another thing that's a 2020 thing that kind of relates to this, that's easy to forget. Think about what a big story trying to remove TikTok would have been had we not been in the middle of the pandemic. And the government intervening to try to give the shares to someone else. I mean, that's a big deal. And
that story's not done yet. I mean, it's still basically has kicked down the road a couple times.
Yeah, and TikTok's still out there. And yesterday, they discovered there were 200 million Huawei devices. I can't remember if it was Huawei or which one, which all had Chinese spyware on them. And so my point is, the art of war, one of the things you do is you distract while you do the other thing. And
I don't know, I mean, it may have been coincidence, but the fact that this withdrawal of the IPO literally happened on the Monday and Tuesday of election week. So we didn't hear quite as much about it for that reason as well.
Yeah. So
and I think it's just, so we don't forget about it, though. I mean, the bottom line, even outside of all the intrigue around the IPO itself, the bottom line was this was going to be the biggest IPO in history. And the valuation was basically by a factor of 2 over Saudi Aramco, which was about a year ago. And it's real stuff. I mean, the valuation was just a shade below where the current market capitalization of both Visa and MasterCard are. And when you think about the market they're in and the volumes that they do, unlike a lot of other companies where you go, wow, that's kind of crazy, you can actually see why that has the value it does. So it doesn't go away. I mean, whether it's a public or private company, and maybe they're going to get pinned back a bit on their loan volumes and ability to originate loans, but this is still a real thing, whether or not the IPO happens.
Well, and its big name of the game is the microloans, right?
Yeah.
Which PayPal's been trying to get into, that and the at the time of purchase loans, which has become a bigger thing as well. And I'd be interested to know. This is one of those things I would throw back at a Jonathan Silly or I wish Kevin was on here. Kevin Wright, he may be. I don't see him, but how much money is going back out to PayPal these days? Like in and out of PayPal because we've seen it in the Koreans I've worked with. I've seen it increase like 5x. So, but what's interesting is usually it's 5x in small amounts in and out and very inconsistent numbers. And now we're seeing very consistent numbers, which suggests to me credit card payback or loan payback. When it's the same amount on a recurring basis, that's interesting. And I can see Jonathan's already trying to get his dashboard up. So
Yep, I am. I'm actually going into Power BI.
yeah, I figured you were. We'll see when it gets back there. But I think that's fascinating. So yeah, that's a great story that's overlooked. That was overlooked because of the pandemic and everything else. It would have been that would be like Facebook trying to get an IPO and pull, when they were going to go public and then pulling out last minute, or Tesla. I mean,
and not pulling out because they had some change of heart, but because
pulling out, somebody else pulled them out.
By the way, changed the rules.
Yep. So I mean, that's a big deal. And by the way, it was probably in our favor in terms of the U.S. economy. I think they would have grown 10x as a public company and threatened MasterCard and Visa. I think that's going to happen soon. Those are good.
Well, and another thing to keep in mind is it was not going public on the U.S. exchanges.
Right.
And on top of that, you've probably seen it's at this point still saber rattling. It might be a negotiating ploy. There's talk about further delisting of companies, Chinese companies on the U.S. exchanges going forward, unless they agree to open their books to more transparent auditing, which will create some interesting challenges. I think that's probably the right thing to do, but it does create an us versus them mentality because there's a demand for people to invest in those companies.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if they'll do it. They don't need us as much as we need them anymore, unfortunately. That's where
John, it sounds like the Chinese Communist Party felt that it was more important to reel in Jack Ma than even expand their reach through their back doors or whatever it is with Ant, because they could have what they've done, what Ant has done in China can be easily scaled worldwide, and coming into this market, they would have had an audience for it. So it sounds like they were more concerned about controlling him, just like Lai over in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
That's a bigger priority for them than even further belt and suspenders work digitally.
Yep. Well, I think they play a much longer game, right? They figure we can't have a dissonant, and if that dissonant gets more powerful, and particularly if he's got control over this much of the population in the form of loans and moving money, it's fascinating. So here's from David in the chat real fast. This will interest you, Glenn. We've seen PayPal transactions in the past 2 weeks of 1.3 million in ACH and 1.1 million in debit POS. For comparison purposes, that ACH total is only behind Chase and Amex in dollars.
Wow.
For PayPal to move that far up the ladder, that's pretty impressive. Because Chase and Amex and in terms of putting that money out, they're paying those bills. That suggests to me that PayPal is winning this game with their new strategy, and I think they are. And that doesn't include Venmo, by the way, which is owned by PayPal. And it's interesting. So I'm just fascinated by how that's all coming together. So what you got next, Glenn? What's the next thing?
Let me just add one more thing kind of to what Tom was saying too. I think it's also worth keeping in mind that the stuff that Jack Ma said, in my view, is basically the kind of things that business leaders in our country say on a daily basis in terms of the impact of regulation and whatnot. So I think it's a good reminder of just how far the biggest disconnect, I think, in terms of the ability to speak freely. The next one on my list is somewhat similar in terms of regulatory kind of pullback, is Visa and Plaid. It was early in the year where Visa and Plaid, boy, Melissa, you are on top of it. Visa and Plaid, had an announced merger worth $5.3 billion. I thought it was a really interesting idea, and it kind of, there's already been a couple of follow-on moves. It looked like MasterCard made some deals to try to get into that same space with Open API. It's an interesting play. And then again, late in the year, we don't really know exactly where it's going to go because we've seen lots of objections filed by the DOJ that wind up creating some kind of a compromise or something, and then the deal proceeds. But they've put forth a pretty strongly worded statement saying that Visa has a monopoly in the debit space, and this was an alternative, cheaper route that people could use, and Visa saw it as a threat to their monopoly and therefore took it out of the market.
But see, I would go a step further on this one. And here's again where, overshadowed by politics and by the pandemic, I think that this was the year that screen scrapers might have come to a head. So just to give some value, some background, Plaid is used by everyone. So if you want to do an instant ACH, if you go in, for instance, oh, come on, Glenn, now I can't remember, what's the Bitcoin? Coinbase.
Yeah.
Yeah, Coinbase. So if you go into Coinbase and you want to set up an ACH, they're going to go, okay, well, here's a list, and it's always the same screen, you can tell. And it's basically Plaid in the background. And what they want is your login and your username. And then they go through and they instantly certify you for an ACH because they log into the account on your behalf. The challenge is, and it's something I wrote about in my book, which I kind of, again, I'm always like way ahead, like not trying to, but I'm like too far ahead, like in a bad way. Like I'm way, I wrote this 2 years ago, but I've always believed that we're just giving away money to these people. Why are they allowed to come in on someone's behalf? It's, it'd be one thing if it was on Jonathan Silly's behalf and it was only used for Jonathan Silly, but that's not what Jonathan Silly agreed to when he clicked on it. And now they then don't just scrape the data that they need to confirm the ACH, they get everything else and they live off selling that. And then who do the members call when that stuff doesn't work? I'll tell you, it ain't Plaid. They call Tom O'Shea, and he doesn't, what's he supposed to do with it? Because it's not something that's in his space. But yet, if they get a foothold and they want that, and you try to take it away once it's out there, then it turns out those users are usually the 10 to 15% of the home banking users that are carrying that population. They're more, they've got a bigger voice. They tend to complain more. They also tend to have more money in the organization. And so Visa buying them really did scare the crap out of me in a way, because what Visa's biggest fear is, and it's kind of happening, is to, I think, be overtaken by other rails. And we know that. Remember, Glenn, when I was on that, what was it? And Mike, you were there. We were both there. Was it the GAC? And all I said was, well, there seems to be some emerging new rails. And I think you were there, Tom. I got attacked by the Visa guy. I mean, he literally just went right after me within a second. He was like, the rails we have are perfect. I'm like, built in 1972. Yes, they're not horrible, but I don't want to ride the monorail anymore. I want to get on the SpaceX. And so with that in mind, I do think that they have a good point on bringing them together to stop this. I also think, and we talked about this, you and I, that that big tech is in for and I wasn't. I'll throw it maybe this at Tom. Tom, when did the bells get broken up? Or Glenn, what year was that?
84, 85?
84, 85. I was in Europe at the time, and I just did not understand. I would have been 14. I didn't understand what was going on, but I feel like, does it, I want to throw it at you guys who are around, who are old enough to, not to say you're old, Kevin. I just want to, for people who understood what was going on at the time, do you feel like we're seeing the same thing in big tech? Like, is that a similar feeling that we're heading in that direction?
Not that I'm that old, but I do see that. My father was at New Jersey Bell and AT&T back at that point. He was very involved in that split up following the judgment. So I had a little bit of an inside story from him. But, when you look at Facebook, is Facebook a platform or a content user? And that's the same concept with the bells was, all right, who's providing the wires? And you provide those wires to anybody. And then whoever's on top of those wires using it to communicate, they're the ones that now need to decide on their content or their moderation and all those types of things. Right today, Facebook, Google, Apple, arguably, are all AT&T's, bells back in the day.
That's what I feel like. I feel like that, but I don't know for sure, but that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Like, Kevin, I see you. When Kevin goes like this, it means he's got a thought. Go ahead, Kevin.
No, I was going in another direction. I was kind of going on the Plaid piece, and we talk about the partnership with Visa being a bad thing, but now Jack Henry announces a partnership with Plaid through the Banno platform, I guess. It's pretty sketchy information, but I'm curious to hear what people think about that. It seems like what do you, John, always, your closest friend is your
You're also your closest enemy. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting play to try and protect our data, I guess, but I'm not sure exactly what the end game is there for.
Yeah, I mean, keep your enemies close and, pardon me, your friends close and your enemies closer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where my head is with that. I think that's exactly what Jack Henry was attempting to do, because that the data is so valuable, but if it's already out there and being commoditized, it's a concern. So
and what does that do to their partnership with the PFM, Gizio?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting thing. Those are two different things, right? So Gizio was a means to an end. They needed to get that data to provide the service they have. Plaid is just built on nothing but providing the access and then collecting the data. They don't have a PFM product on the other side. Their big win is two things. One, the ACH instant certification. That's a big one. The follow-up to that is they're big into the business space. They will automatically log into your QuickBooks. So if you're looking to do like receivables, receivable loans or something, they'll you give your thing and they into your QuickBooks or into your any of those other services that provide accounting services for small businesses, and it goes in and pulls in your AP and all that, and then turns around the information to the Blue Vines, the bigger mid-level lenders of the world to give you credit for those receivables. That's another big play. Again, while they're in there, they're like, oh, wow. It's like, imagine that like you let the plumber in your house and he was like, all right, I'm going to fix your plumbing. But on the way out, he was like, I really, really like these dishes. Take these and I'm going to, and I'm going to, oh, look at that. That's a nice jacket. I'm going to take that. And then, oh yeah, I like this dog. You're coming with me. Your new name is Jack. And out you go. I mean, that's a little what it's like. You're letting them in for one reason, and they're sort of on the way out grabbing everything they can find. Oh, by the way, while I was in there, I took a look in your refrigerator. I think you're short on milk. I'm going to send you to a milk provider. I didn't ask you to look in the refrigerator. Doesn't matter. But I'm lactose intolerant. That's why I don't have a lot of milk. Well, you're going to get milk ads. That's what you're going to get, buddy. Everybody likes milk. And so that's the way I look at what's going on. And eventually, I actually wrote out, if you've read my book, I actually wrote out a whole thesis on what to do. And what I said was that you should turn it off. You should provide a form letter to every member that they can send off that basically says, we would love to work with you. All we want you to do is come in through an API, and we want you to do it right. And we want to make sure, because by the way, they circumvent MFA. They circumvent all kinds of security. If I was going to hack a bunch, and this happens all the time, if I was going to case a bunch, let's say I got a bunch of account information off the dark, not saying I do this. Okay, Mike, stop looking at me that way. But if I was going to case a bunch of credit unions, what I would do is I would never go in through the front door. I would use a Mint, a Yodlee, an MX, or whatever, because they're hiding me, and I would go through there, and that would keep me from even bothering, because I don't want to spend my time on accounts that have a nickel in it, So first thing I'll do is go in there and set them all up. And by the way, it's the same people, or it's the same technology that these bad word people are using to buy up all my PS5s and resell them on eBay for $3,000. Which, by the way, that's a whole episode that I could get into. By the way, I could do that. I choose not to. I choose to use my powers for good. I'm not saying I don't have a little bot running on Best Buy just in case one shows up. I'm just saying I don't have a big bot net that swings into Walmart and buys 3,000 of them. Anyways, let's move on to the next one. What you got next, Glen?
Next one that I have is the overall VC market. And this one, I think, with hindsight, you might say this shouldn't have been too surprising, but I think when the pandemic hit back in March, we've been saying for some time with a lot of the smaller companies that, you know, they've managed to grow over a period of unprecedented, you know, extended expansion. We basically had a decade without a downturn. And it was always, okay, are these business models still going to hold up when things go bad? And I think one of the concerns was they need a source of funding because a lot of them still are not cash flow positive. I think there was a lot of concern that venture capital money would dry up almost instantaneously, kind of in the middle of the year. That really hasn't happened. Venture capital funding, for the most part, has stayed pretty stable. And I think that's a positive in terms of kind of keeping the innovation engine running, which is good.
You know,
Part of it's because obviously we have a whole lot of new digital needs too.
yeah, that's where I was going to go. Kevin and I did a lot of research, and one of the things we pulled back was this McKinsey pandemic survey. And one of the things it said was, you know, in trying times, like what happens is the playing field gets really leveled fast, but there's also incredible new needs very quickly. If suddenly the way you did business for 100 years isn't good anymore, it's not like there's already good ways of doing these things out there. There are already ways of doing these things that aren't, you know, the same, but there's plenty of room for new models, for new ideas. I mean, look at Dash, was it? Look at all the food delivery companies. DoorDash, Grubhub, the Lawson delivery service, which it really only brings you tacos, which is weird, but mostly from, what's that place? What's the name of that taco place I always saw when I was out there? Now I can't remember it. It's
Roberto's?
No, it's like Lunatics Tacos, Taco Del.
Taco Loco.
Wahoo's Fish Tacos.
Something Loco, yeah. It's Casa del
El Pollo Loco?
What's that?
El Pollo Loco?
El Pollo Loco, the chicken place. That's it.
The crazy chicken. That's what it means.
The crazy chicken. But going back, you know, but those are those temporary things, or are they permanent things? And the VCs see opportunity in that. You know, I was thinking about the other day, I drove by, went to drop my car off yesterday, and I drove by Chick-fil-A. And that Chick-fil-A that's by me that opened just before the pandemic, it still has not opened its internal place. When you go through the drive-through, you can see inside, it's now a warehouse, just filled with boxes and stuff. They no longer care. They're just like, this is our new place to put all the shake machine stuff. And, you know, so, but yet I haven't seen Chick-fil-A stock go down. And to your point, I didn't really think it would. I did think some things would be really hurt. I think, unfortunately, what's going to be really hurt is the smaller to medium-sized business that depends on foot traffic. There's no way around it.
There's no question the Chick-fil-A, they had the best operation as far as drive-through coming into the situation.
Oh God!
And therefore, they were able to scale it up pretty darn quickly. And
we talked about, one of the episodes we had was how to Chick-fil-A your drive up. You know, you could see Jonathan out there with his little tablet, you know, walking up to the cars and knocking on the windows, just inhaling deeply, so he gets a lot of that, you know, a lot of the emission from the cars. No,
I saw Tarek put something into the chat about, you know, the VC money coming into some new areas for exactly that reason. Another thing I'll throw in is with zero interest rates, there's still a desire to chase, you know, returns. So that's going to be one of the things that kind of keeps things going as well. But Airbnb is a perfect example. I mean, at first they took a real tumble. Nobody was traveling, and they slashed their costs to try to get themselves back to profitability. And here they are, you know, about to have a very successful IPO, because now when people do travel, they're doing it in a place where they can control the environment, which means they're living by themselves in a self-contained unit as opposed to a hotel. And from what I've heard, they've really taken off in the smaller locations. It's the big cities where people aren't traveling as much because they have less reason to, that those places are still soft. But I know we've personally, I think 3 different times over the course of the last 6 months have rented private houses and made car trips out of those and felt totally safe.
So I thought I'd make a quick point. It's a quick video. This is the In-N-Out that opened by my house. To this day, and it opened, you can see that date that was on there. Hang on, I'll replay it, see, because it's only 25 seconds long. But the date was, this was 11/21, and you could see the cars go all the way around, and back there's like a movie theater type thing. It's all the way into that parking lot, all the way around it. There it is. You could see them all the way around on the other side. And it was taking, and still does today, 4 hours to get anything from that
4
place.
hours.
And
Yeah.
people were willing to wait.
People
They
are
get
more
there
than
at breakfast
I
and
mean,
expect lunch.
In and out is good, but it's not that good.
Yeah.
I would 100% agree. I mean, it's great stuff. Kevin introduced me to it years ago, and then he moved me right by one for many years. But the point is that I don't know that people are walking away and what you're saying. And so, but they definitely did very much go into the Chick-fil-A model on that. There are people all the way back to the end of that line. They also opened a warehouse back there, and they're like headquarters here in Colorado Springs, for this part of the country, which was pretty cool. So I don't disagree. I think Tarek makes a good point, because I think what's happening is that, again, the accelerated digital has created those models, but there are plenty of, I'm still waiting for the other shoe to fall on cars. I love Tesla, but I worry about that valuation. I worry about how high it is, because I just don't foresee myself needing. I don't even know if I need 2 cars anymore. I'm still trying to decide. Now, that's me. There are people who have kids and other things, but I do think that the need for cars is going to go down a bit. And even Elon himself said, "Hey, we were not about this many cars. We're about, hey, Zach, we're about, the Model S and the energy portion of it." And so, yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
Talk about another one that might get hit with the cars. I forget if I mentioned this before, Sirius XM and
Yep.
the subscriptions. And I felt bad for the guy, but it was just kind of interesting hearing kind of the talking points that they're given. I got a call that for some reason I picked up, even though I didn't recognize the number. And what's my car, but I never drive it anymore. Whenever I get in the car, my wife's is the one that's closest to getting out of the driveway. So I just take hers. My Sirius XM expired probably 5 months ago on my car. They called back and wanted to get me to turn it back on. I said, I just really don't drive that car anymore. I drive the other car, and we got Sirius XM in that one. He said, well, don't forget, you can always listen in your house. You can use your online applications. I'm like,
You could listen
right, and I can do that
on
on
your
my
shoe.
current subscription, not the second car that I'm not using. And you could kind of hear the guy go, oh, yeah. He had never thought of that
Change
before.
that.
So I still have a second car that doesn't run Sirius XM. We'll see if that ever changes.
It's interesting because SpaceX just got a huge grant for providing internet to a good chunk of the rural population at a higher speed.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of wondered if some of the XM stuff could be. My dad was involved with launching a lot of that in NASA in the mid '90s, and I wonder. I wish he was still around. I'd love to ask him if any of that could be. You know what? I'll ask my friends who are also with there. I'm working with a lot of people from NASA. Actually, I plan on hopefully next year in the start of the year, we're going to have a couple guys from they're doing the new space station and the new moon station come on and talk to us. Matt Onler and Tim Crane, which will be really awesome. But going back to that, I think that this idea that maybe they could repurpose. I think one of the things that needs to happen, and I've said this before, is credit unions, businesses in general, need to look for adjacent businesses. I have a friend who owns a whole bunch of food places out here, all these restaurants. And the adjacent business that he found was this big, large catering thing. He provided, Thanksgiving dinners for people. And you just pull up in the parking lot and they throw a bunch of stuff in the back of your car, you leave and eat it. It was all good for me. So I think that adjacent businesses are going to be important. I think for us, that's going to mean more looking into insurance and other adjacent products that go with what we have, because we're going to sell less of them. And so we have to find ways to provide more value for what we do sell and get more profit out of it, or get more, profit's a dirty word in our world, but you know what I mean. We have to get more returns.
What else
Tom,
besides insurance, John? What else would credit unions be interested in? I mean, this might be a question for Tom too, as far as adjacent businesses.
I think there's a lot. I think insurance is one. I think identity is a big one.
Yeah.
I've said that all along. I think that's a huge adjacent business. I think that I think there's something to be said for the micro lending, like what Ant's doing. I think there's other kinds of insurances that are out there that make a lot of sense, particularly because anything that brings a group model for cost that you can leverage to get discounts for everyone is a good value. I mean, that's the whole USAA thing. But I'll throw it to Tom. I saw he had something to say.
Think about like auto insurance. We're seeing more models where it's you pay by the mile. Well, so let's say we have the car loan. We
Right.
have a vested interest in making sure it's insured and monitoring the use of that vehicle from value standpoint. So there's a great opportunity there to hook into those pieces.
Oh, wow.
Investment services, more advanced investment services, we really have not done a lot. Most credit unions, it's a bolt-on ancillary vendor-related reference type of arrangement. It's not embedded within the organization as a core offering. So yeah, there's a bunch of things like that, and the insurances are very right for it. But insurance is going robo too, so it could be a temporary thing.
But well, truly, Kevin, was it you that once told me that, hey, John, if I can sell the insurance, I can give you a 0% every time? Based on
Yeah, that was something that we looked into a number of times, and if you could, particularly if you can adjust for mileage and those type of things, and you see these little things that you attach that monitor your driving habits, and they really monitor your braking habits. But that's the kind of
Mine just blew
increased
up.
data that gets theirs more accurate that we could do.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about insurance is it's pretty sticky. If you can get a member to move, they renew on a pretty regular basis.
I'll tell you what I wish credit unions would provide back when my kids were moving around and stuff is renter's insurance. That would be a great one, because how many of our members need that, and you don't even know where to go when they first tell you that. It's like, what do you need? Never even heard of that. I mean, it's just it's common. It's been around forever, but just doesn't seem like anybody knows what it is.
Right.
I think,
and if nobody knows who it is, nobody knows that a credit union would offer it. And, it's another step removed from that thought process, I think.
right. But you could tie it into direct deposit or something. I'll give you free renter's insurance if you do direct deposit and pay your rent, your apartment rent this way. And how hard would it be, Tom, for you to, or Jonathan, for you to go out, Zach, to some of these bigger, there's like, in my opinion, there's probably like 20 of these property companies usually in the city that really run most of the bigger apartment complexes. You can always tell if they're kind of the same. It's the Promontory Point versus this versus that. Make some deals with those guys and say, hey, if you'll send them our way, we'll take care of the renter's insurance, because it's not that much. I mean, it turns out to be like 10, 15 bucks a month. It's never a big deal once they figure it out. The bigger deal is tracking it down. I'm just spitballing services. I haven't looked into it, so I don't know. But that's kind of what I see. What's the next one, Glenn? What do you got?
Melissa, I'll throw you for a loop if you're the one putting up the slides, because I don't think this one was from something I haven't even written up yet. I'm kind of curious in throwing this out to the group. What is everybody hearing these days about the coin shortage? There's a big story. I'm still seeing a few places. I know my Chipotle still has a sign saying they're only taking exact change. How's that playing out in the last few months for you?
We're still seeing signs in our stores out here in Jersey, the Northeast. Yeah.
We have them here too.
And the signs, what about in terms of members? Are they bringing in their coins? Are you seeing any more redemption?
Ours has started to finally trail off. We were seeing a massive amount of coin influx. And I mentioned this on a prior call with this group that, we were actually having to repair our coin counters significantly more often because of the amount of coin that when we opened up our branches again, members just started piling it in. But it seems like that initial rush is over, and that's sort of stabilized to more normal volumes at this point.
Has anybody else seen, I just started seeing it this weekend, there's a Best Buy commercial. It looks like one of those like really low rent kind of make your own animated things with a little girl breaking her piggy bank to go buy some stuff. And this just absolute flood of coins comes out of it. And I've seen that 2-3 times, and every time, being a payments geek, I'm like, that's where the coins are. We got to get to the piggy banks. I'm curious because I know that there's still talk about it, but at the same time, I haven't heard as much about it. So
there was a great, I don't know if anybody, I listen to a lot of podcasts, And there was a great, there's a podcasting group. They're very popular. It's called Stuff You Should Know.
They're based down the street from me. Yeah.
Yeah, they are. Well, before they got bought by iHeart, right? But they did an episode on it, and it was fascinating. Apparently, there is some money cleaning going on by the Fed that I wasn't aware of. I sent you the link. I remember it was after we talked about it because I was completely dumbfounded by it. Like, is it just that everybody's got a lot of time at home and they're searching their cushions and finding stuff, or is it that everybody's, I just don't know. But that episode really cleared a lot of it up. So if you haven't listened to it,
I got to go, but no, I have not. I got to listen to it. I also noticed doesn't seem to be as much activity on the hashtags on Twitter anymore, but I went back and looked at that because I made that same comment about the Best Buy commercial. And I was surprised that people can find a conspiracy theory in anything. Because there are people out there convinced it was a hoax.
They all go to this guy who has like triple COVID and he licks each coin.
I'm just trying to figure out what the end game was for somebody to put a hoax out there for the coin shortage. I couldn't even figure out
it's like Superman and the half pennies, right?
What was the incentive? It didn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, I couldn't figure it out either. But I would say just an idea. Here's an idea. Maybe that's something to ping staff about. Wouldn't it be kind of cool to say, hey, everybody, bring in all your coins, staff wise. If you got time, we know you're at home a bit. We'll give you, I don't know, Tom's always good at coming up with some tchotchke to give to the staff that they would appreciate, a day off, I don't know, whatever. But if they bring it in, I mean, they're coming anyways, might as well sort of contribute to it so that at least your place has coins. And I think the staff would probably appreciate it. Plus, it's kind of fun.
The U.S. has a coin shortage, so we set up a coin task force. Europe has a similar issue. They set up a digital payments task force.
Yeah.
How do we move forward as opposed to like continuing to deal with these coins?
Yeah, let's not be reactive to it. Let's try to be proactive and figure out what to do. But yeah, you're right. It's another thing that if this had happened in any other regular year, of course, this I believe was a symptom of the pandemic. But who knows,
Supply and demand, because I guess they had to pull back on the production in the mint, and then you also had less circulating back in because people had them at home and stopped taking them into the shops. And there's this perception that they were dirty.
Yeah.
Curious, Jonathan and Tom, when people did bring in, when you got coins coming in, what did you send them back and recirculate all the way, or did you keep them internally and have them available for people who were looking for coins?
For the most part, at least for us, we recirculated, or we sent them back into recirculation. We, honestly, we didn't have, the only thing we had to do really to, and honestly, it's probably a good idea to have done this anyways. The one thing we changed internally is that we would get coin collectors coming in and they just want to have boxes of coin, just, here's $1,000, give me all dimes. And so we finally said, you know what, we're not doing that anymore. And honestly, I think that solved a lot of our problems. But from an internal coin standpoint, so when we were taking it in, we were really just sending it back out into circulation and weren't necessarily using it for our internal operations.
But isn't that what you do? You make your staff to go through them and look at all the dates and then you send them back out.
And the collectors.
Yeah, if there's anything that's worth anything, and then weirdly enough, they have to go right to his desk. That's where they get straight to Tom.
Though is send the coins back to the Fed.
Yeah,
and send them out.
That's a great thing, because I mean that's one of the things I believe is that over time, we were just developing these little stashes all over the place, which is just clearly less efficient, which was just making the problem that much worse. The same paper towel and toilet paper effect. Everybody's got their own little stockpile.
I would agree. All right. So that one's definitely one that sort of continues to be a problem. And theoretically, if we shut down again, we'll be a bigger problem, I think.
My next one that I was big on, just again, it kind of came around the election, was Proposition 22 in California. And for people who are not familiar with it, the way it treats gig economy workers, which California put it on the ballot because they've got this whole process around propositions where you can much more easily put things out to referendum for the people to decide. But this is the whole idea of whether gig economy workers are treated as employees or contractors.
So
And I think it's going to be, that's something that's going to be getting extended further. I've got to believe to other states, in the
yeah,
relatively
so
near
let me take two positions on that. First of all, Zach just did something amazing, some sort of magic trick that was pretty cool. He walked back into his green screen and magically, I've never seen that before. Green screens don't behave like that. That was like some Harry Potter crap there. I don't know. But going back into what you just said, so give me the two outcomes. What am I voting for if I'm voting for Proposition 23? Because I have my own.
That was one of the interesting things and I happen to know that my brother-in-law got confused and voted the wrong way. The other way he intended to, which is not the first time I've heard that.
I think that's pretty common.
Yeah. So the yes proposition was the one that was advanced by Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, et cetera, which says we will provide some additional safety. We will guarantee a minimum wage of 20% over what the state mandated minimum was. But people who are driving, it was very specifically written to apply to app-based driver services, whether drivers or delivery people, that they would not be treated as employees for all other purposes. There's other liability issues. There's obviously FICA and withholding issues, health insurance. They also, in terms of what they provided as part of their proposal to say, yes, keep them off the books, was a stipend to be applied toward healthcare, as long as I think people worked between, I think there was a 25-hour-a-week cutoff and a 15 to 25-hour cutoff. You got different percentages to help pay for your healthcare. No was, and what had happened was the California legislature, Mike, you probably know at least as much about this as I do from living.
You're doing a darn good job.
The California legislature had passed an ordinance, whatever you want to, a law that said that from now on people were going to be treated as employees, and that was what got the group to get together as an industry and say, no, let's try it this way. And I think it's an interesting question because clearly the old rules no longer made sense. So the California legislature took it very far in one direction. The companies then basically, one of the objections I heard is they basically got into the business of writing their own regulation, and they got the public to pass it, and it did pass.
It passed, yeah.
So they are keeping these folks off the books. One of the things I thought was interesting, and I don't know if it was a coincidence or not, but I saw a commercial here for, I think it was either Uber or Lyft, that the entire commercial, for a while they were advertising, trying to attract drivers based on the flexibility, blah, blah, blah. The whole commercial seemed to be driven on, I don't want to work for somebody. I'm not an employee. I'm my own boss. So it sounded like they were already trying to export this messaging to other states.
Yeah,
and I don't think I don't think any place else has the same types of law that allows them to put it directly on the ballot, but it might just be a way to start influencing the legislatures as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think this one, I still don't know where they've got it in California is the end game, but I think we're going to see some movement in both directions before we kind of figure out how these employers are going to be treated. Talk about another place for credit unions to get involved, though.
That's what I was about to say. I see this as I think we talked about this. I see this as an incredible opportunity for the credit unions. I mean, if you think of the gig economy as one giant seg that has very similar needs, that is a true opportunity for credit unions. And I think it's going to grow and grow and grow. I think that the gig economy is here to stay. And even if it's not your primary employment, there are lots of people who are doing it on the side. And I think we're going to continue to see that. It may not be so much dragging people around, but to the idea that I think of it like, I always tell this story. I was a teacher and I didn't understand how I was supposed to get paid. And I wound up needing summer skips, and Suncoast had them, and it was very specific to me and what I needed as a teacher. I think there's plenty of specific stuff for the gigs. And Tom, I would throw it your way because it's almost, to me, very similar to the medallion cab driver type, that was the beginning of your organization, right?
Personally, I have a bias against anything Uber and Lyft that supports Uber and Lyft as companies.
Right, because of that. Yeah.
And the problem with the gig worker. But part of the problem is payroll consistency. I mean, they're ideal for like a standing payday loan because their income is up and down by the day. And there are delays in getting paid as well.
Yeah.
They may need, they can't wait till Tuesday. They need today money on Friday when they did the work. So there's opportunity in that.
And what about like, there's some new IRAs, like the simple IRA, that SEP-based IRAs that I think that Crayons could legislate over to help these people because they're actually making money, but they don't have any place to deal with taxes either. That's one of the big missing pieces. And even if you just got them a regular IRA at 7,000 that you could put in to help with the tax burden, like just that alone, like let's say Tom or Jonathan or Zach or whoever, you dug in and you said, hey, I'm going to find all the gig workers. First of all, it'd be super easy to find. It would take me no time to find most of those people. And you went back to them and said, listen, guys, we love that you're gig workers. We love that you're here with us. One thing we want to help you with is to reduce your taxable income and give you some benefit. Here are 3 programs that you could go through that we already provide, because you already provide IRAs, right, Tom? And so a simple IRA would be a huge benefit for any gig worker.
There's needs on both the personal level like that and also on the business level. We're talking to our medallion owners about payment processing because they're just getting screwed.
Right, like 5 and 6%.
Or plastic cards. And we can easily offer them a much better deal. And when we tie it into their relationship with us, we now are getting access to their cash flow because those payments are coming into their account with us. So we can manage and monitor their activity on a daily basis to understand the risks. And we can also reward them for it as well.
I swear, I believe that this is a great opportunity for someone like CUNA to get involved in and create sort of a gig worker program that all Crayons could sort of participate in, to jump in and say, okay, we've already pre-built these products and packages out of the solutions you have, and here's all the pre-marketing. Here you go. Here's how you find them. Go and help them out. I really believe that this, if you're looking for an adjacent opportunity, they need cars. If they're an Uber driver, they need cars. There are actually people who need cars. And by the way, the deal that DoorDash or Uber Eats gives them isn't as good as what you could give them, Tom.
Screwed them completely.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, you see these guys driving around in these giant Suburbans or whatever that, oh yeah, well, Uber helped me get this. And they're paying a massive amount, not to mention, let's go back to our insurance model. There's very specific insurance you have to do this kind of driving. And don't forget too, that it isn't just these eating people. Dude, any Yahoo can show up and deliver an Amazon package anymore. It could be a dude in a horse and carriage and it wouldn't surprise me. Like, who are you? I'm delivering your Amazon package. Okay, well, welcome to the neighborhood. That's a little different, but we can work with that. I mean, there are people who make a good living delivering food during the day and then going down to their, these Amazon warehouses they're popping up every day, grabbing 10, 12, 50 packages. And oh, by the way, the systems that do this stuff are ridiculous. Like they compute the routes. They go, okay, where do you live? Well, I live here. Okay, so you pick up 10 packages from the Amazon warehouse and it computes, it says, take these 10 packages and at the end of the route, you're home. Like that's the kind of stuff that's going on.
Isn't Walmart doing that as well? I heard Walmart is doing that with their employees.
Right now, there's such a backlog of anybody who can deliver anything. They're all desperate to try to stay ahead of the curve for the rest of the holiday season.
Except for PS5s, which I bought. Let me rampage for 1 minute here. I had one. I bought it. I got the thing from Walmart that said I paid for it. I didn't buy anything. I just went online. They did it. It said it would be delivered on December 4th. December 4th came. Nothing showed up. I went and looked in my email. Nothing. I clicked on the little link that said check on your order. It just said canceled. Suck it, Walmart. That's what I say.
No explanation?
None. Zero. And then Ant Online, I got 2 of them from there, and they said you can only have 1. I said, but I legit bought one for my business. I'm doing stuff within television and gaming stuff. And then the other one was for my daughter for Christmas. They cut off the other one. They were like, yeah, we don't care. You get 1. What's that, Kevin? Or with Tom?
That's a likely story, John.
Oh, hey, don't you be talking to me, buddy. I know who you are. You medallion cab lender.
I'm also thinking it's too bad for your daughter that she won't be getting one.
Right.
No, she got one. The one that we got 1 of them. She got that. I get nothing, but I don't care about, but I was trying to get one for my son, my father, because they actually all get together and play. I kind of like fostering the family doing things together. My father-in-law will play with them all day long, and I just love that they have that connection. So, and if I ever get one, that's great, but I probably won't. Lately, I actually they had a drop at Walmart, and they said, take this this scanner thing, and you go up and ask them. So I sent my buddy, because Walmart seems like a COVID mixing pot to me. And he's young and can do it. I said, I'll give you $50 to go up there and stand in line. He went up there, got to the front of the line, and they scanned it and said, yeah, I might have found a way to know when things are on a truck at Walmart. I'm not saying I did or didn't. I'm just saying I might know. And so they were like, yeah, those aren't off the truck yet. And I was like, I give up. So anyways, we are at our time. What a great episode. Glenn, I'm hoping we can use some of this for the podcast, because it's some great input.
Yeah, and if anybody's interested, we covered, I've got one blog post that I think we covered 3 of the topics today on there, and I'm going to do the other one. We'll cover Prop 22 and a few others that we didn't get to.
And I have a couple others I'd sent to you as well. In particular, some of the stuff we were talking about where Android has added the ability for people to, for the carriers to shut off things if you don't pay your bills to the bank.
Oh, right.
Which was pretty crazy. So, and then Melissa just put the link for the blog in the screen there, and we'll get that out to everyone. So we have one more episode next week. Glenn, I hope you join us. Would you mind joining us next week either way?
I'll do my best. I got to check my calendar, but if I'm available, I definitely will.
Melissa, who do we have as a guest?
Theodora Lau is joining us next week.
Oh, great. She's great.
Yep. Yeah, and that's why I'm asking you. I know, Glenn, you've interviewed before. So it's going to be a great interview. It's a great way to close out the year. Again, I just can't thank you all enough for supporting this. We will continue. And I think we're going to take some new turns in the new year and try to grow this and do some different things. If you have ideas, please don't hesitate to let me know. Can't thank you all enough for taking the time once a week to join us. And so see you next week. And then from there on, hope everybody has just great holidays.